Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Salaka Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Mayam Rupagara Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidhamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpajubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Too small.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Presho Badresho Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavad Utama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. So today, Thursday, February 19th, 2026, we're reading from a Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, The Creative Impetus. Chapter 1, The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. Text number 30, which is in prosaic form, which states, Yabada Vyasayati Sudagiriam Anuparikramam Bhagavan Adityo Vasudhatalam Ardhenaiva Pratapat Yadhardhena Vachadhayati Tadahi Bhagavad Upasano Parichitati Purusha Prabhavastad Anibhinandan Samajabhena Rathena Jyotirmayena Rajanim Apidinam Karishyamiti Satyakrit Vashtaranim Anuparyakramad Vitiya Iva Patangaha. Say that 3 times real fast. And we'll do the synonyms just for the sake of purity. Yavat, so long. Avabhasayati, illuminates. Suragirim, the Sumeru hill. Anuparikramam, by circumambulating. Bhagavan, the most powerful. Aditya, sun god. Vasudhatalam, the lower planetary system. Ardhena, by half. Eva, certainly. Pratapati, makes dazzling. Ardhena, by half. Avachadayati,
Avachadayati,
covers with darkness.
covers with darkness.
Sada,
Sada,
at that time.
at that time.
He, certainly.
Certainly.
Bhagavadupasana,
Bhagavatam,
by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
by worshiping the Supreme Personality of God.
Upachita,
Upachita,
by satisfying Him perfectly.
by satisfying Him perfectly.
Atipurusha,
Ati-Purusha,
superhuman.
superhuman.
Prabhavaha,
Prabhava,
influence.
influence.
Tat, that. Anabhinandam,
Anabhinandam,
without appreciating.
without appreciating.
Samajavena,
Samadhavena,
by equally powerful.
equally powerful.
Ratena,
Ratena,
on a chariot.
chariot.
Jyoti Mayena,
Jyoti Mayena,
dazzling.
dazzling.
Rajanim,
Rajani,
night.
night.
Api,
Happy,
also.
awesome.
Dinam,
Dina,
day.
day.
Karishyami,
Karishyami,
I shall make it.
I shall make it.
Iti,
Iti,
thus.
thus.
Saptakrit,
Saptakrit,
7 times.
7 times.
Vashtaranim,
Vastarani,
exactly following the orbit of the sun.
exactly following the orbit of the sun.
Anuparya Kramat,
Anuparya Rama,
circumambulated.
circumambulated.
Dutiya,
Dutiya,
second.
second.
Eva,
Viva,
like.
like.
Patangaha,
Patangaha,
sun.
sun.
Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. While so excellently ruling the universe, King Priyabrata once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumeru hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light. And when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrata disliked this situation and therefore decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whoa. This is, of course, the 5th canto itself gets into the whole cosmic situation. So here's a preview of the structure of the cosmos mentioned in regard to the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata, who was not happy with the performance of the sun. And so he decided to take matters into his own hands. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. There is a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful that he can make the night day and the day night. That saying is current because of the prowess of Priyavrata. His activities demonstrate how powerful he became by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna is known as Yogeshwara, the master of all mystic powers. In Bhagavad Gita 1878, it is said that wherever there is the master of all mystic powers, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, victory, fortune, and all other opulences are present. Devotional service is so powerful. When a devotee achieves what he wants to accomplish, it is not by his own mystic power, but by the grace of the master of mystic power, Lord Krishna. By his grace, a devotee can accomplish wonderful things, unimaginable even to the most powerful scientist, like riding in a chariot behind the sun and illuminating the darker portions of the universe. From the description in this verse, it appears that the sun moves. According to modern astronomers, the sun is fixed in one place, surrounded by the solar system. But here we find that the sun is not stationary. It is rotating in a prescribed orbit. This fact is corroborated by Brahma Samhita 552. Yasya gyaya brahmati sambriti kala chakra. The sun is rotating in its fixed orbit in accordance with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Jyotirveda, the science of astronomy in the Vedic literature, the sun moves for 6 months on the northern side of Sumeru Hill and for 6 months on the southern side. We have practical experience on this planet that when there is summer in the north, there is winter in the south and vice versa. Modern materialistic scientists sometimes present themselves as knowing all the ingredients of the sun, yet they are unable to offer a second sun like Maharaj Priyavrata. Although Maharaj Priyavrata devised a very powerful chariot, as brilliant as the sun, he had no desire to compete with the sun god. For a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. His purpose was to give abundant benefits in material existence. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that in the months of April and May, the rays of Maharaj Priyavrata's brilliant sun were as pleasing as the rays of the moon. And in October and November, both morning and evening, that sun provided more warmth than the sunshine. In short, Maharaj Priyavrata was extremely powerful, and his actions extended his power in all directions. Wow. Mukham karoti vachalam hangam nagayate girim jat kripa tamaham bande sigurum didatarinam palamalandamalabam. So Prabhupada, first of all, this is totally amazing. But do not take it as some mythology or some fanciful story, but this is a statement of fact, a historical fact, that Maharaj Priyavrata, being not completely satisfied with the performance of the sun, decided to supplement the operations of the sun with his own second sun. And then ordinary people who have no potency whatsoever claim that I am God. But here we see a great devotee is empowered by the Lord, and he can do wonderful things. Prabhupada quotes this wonderful verse at the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, is it? Yatra Partha Dhanadha, Yatasvir Vijaya Bhutir, Dhruva Matir Mama. So we're going to return to that verse and look at the verse purport in a few minutes. But one should not try to imitate the activities of a great Vaishnava, or think even that he can understand the activities of a great Vaishnava, which is mentioned, let's see here, no, wrong direction. There it is. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya Lila, chapter 23, which is entitled Life's Ultimate Goal, Love of Godhead. And this is the instructions of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Sanatana Goswami. And he instructed him exhaustively in the science of Krishna consciousness, with the view that Sanatana Goswami would take those instructions and then write books explaining them, like the Hari Bhakti Vilas, for example. A manual on Vaishnava culture and Vaishnava behavior and Vaishnava practice. And so in this verse from this chapter is really a fantastic chapter. It's really up there in understanding the science of love of God. He also instructed Rupa Goswami in a similar way And then Rupa Goswami codified the instructions about the science of Krishna consciousness in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. Which Srila Prabhupada called a law book of Krishna consciousness. So in this chapter 23 of the Madhya Lila, there is one interesting verse, verse number 39. Yanmara chete Krishna prema karo yahudai, angravakya kriya mudra vigehana bhujai. Even the most learned man cannot understand the words, activities, and symptoms of a person situated in love of God. And then Srila Prabhupada also, in his elsewhere in his lectures and in his classes, he would quote this verse or version there of Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigejana Bhujai. So, ordinary persons cannot understand the activities or the mind or the motivations of a Vaishnava. Ordinary persons will judge a Vaishnava based on their own consciousness, based on their own motivations, and think there's a saying Prabhupada often quotes, Atmavan manyate jagat. Atmavan. Van means to possess. Atmavan. Whatever I think, then manyate jagat. The whole world is like that. So, for example, if I'm a rascal and I'm filled with so many sinful desires, I think that everyone is a rascal and is filled with so many desires. That's Atmavan Manyate Jagat. But that is very limited and small consciousness. And so such a thinking of a conditioned soul cannot extend to appreciate the true character and activities of a Vaishnava. And we see here that a Vaishnava, in the person of Maharaj Priyabrata, he is extremely powerful. You cannot do what he has done. You cannot construct a brilliant chariot and follow the orbit of the sun so that in the cooler times of the spring and the fall, he is providing more light and warmth than the actual sun itself. Try to figure that out with your scientific consciousness, Mr. PhD. No, you cannot. Cannot understand it. Vaishnavera kriya mudra vigejana bhujaya. And therefore, the supposed scholars and educated people of this world, they speculate in various ways without even actually having a clue as to what is really going on in the universe. How the universe is created, first of all, how it is constructed, and what is the purpose. And what is the history of the universe? No one understands the history of the universe outside of those who study the Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is the purpose of the universe and how to best live within the universe and get the most out of a progressive life, which is explained in Bhagavad Gita in basic form. And this was mentioned in yesterday's class, that work as a sacrifice has to be performed. Loko yam karma bandhana. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. So whatever facilities you have, for example, a rich person has many facilities that an ordinary person does not, but they also need to perform sacrifice to the Lord. But not only them, but everyone needs to perform sacrifice according to their capacity, according to their facilities, according to their karma that they have in this life. Someone has good karma, they got plenty of money, they got good facilities, they got a great house, they got a good car, they're beautiful, they're smart. Someone else is, just struggling to get by, like we see on our own very First Avenue, people who are struggling at the very bottom end of the karmic wheel, and they can't even manage to walk down the street properly, or they can't even cross the street properly at the proper place and the proper time. What to speak of, engage whatever little bit of influence they have in this world in the service of the Lord. There's not even a question of that. That's just like the existence of a rat in a garbage pile, just scurrying around, digging, trying to find some scraps to exist, filthy, smelly, and in that circumstance, in that position, the rat actually is thinking, oh yes, I'm living very nicely, and I'm very happy. And Srila Prabhupada wrote that in his prayer that he wrote aboard the Dhirodatta, that he got off the ship in Boston Harbor and saw the people of the great city of Boston, where I happen to personally have lived for 3 years. And so I also got firsthand experience of the people of the great city of Boston, which, although I grew up in the South, which is supposed to be backwards and people are not very elevated or intelligent, I saw in the people in Boston that they were the most small-minded, prejudiced, puffed up, foolish people that I had ever encountered. And I was astounded, because here we are in the bastion of material education. Harvard, MIT, Boston University, Boston College. What was that little college we used to preach at sometimes? Emerson, small boutique liberal arts college where very rich kids went to school and were trained up to become little Hiranyakashipus. This was the very most elevated possible place to be, and the temple is situated right in the heart of that, on Commonwealth Avenue, right in the downtown district, very close to the Boston Public Gardens and the Boston Common, which is the very birthplace of freedom of America, all that kind of stuff, right? So, but I quickly lost whatever awe and reverence I had for the place and the people, meeting them. Like there was one town on the coast there called Lynn, and the saying was, Lynn, Lynn, city of sin. Because the people were very low class and very interested in pursuing the culture of sense gratification, particularly drugs and sex life. So that is not the symptom of an elevated culture and civilization. Nonetheless, Prabhupada wrote, after visiting the city of Boston with Captain Pandya from the Dhirodatta, they walked around, did a little shopping, and he wrote that the people here are very much covered by the modes of passion and ignorance. And they think themselves very happy, but actually they are suffering very greatly under the influence of the modes of material nature. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. One thinks that I am the doer, I am the controller, I am manipulating material energy, but one is actually like a puppet. Ahankara vimudatma, under the influence of the false ego, the bodily conception of life, one is bewildered. Vimudhatma, one is a great fool, a plaything in the hands of Maya. So these are the people who are supposed to be very elevated and learned, but as it turns out, they are not. Even though they are considered that way, even around the whole world. And they're very much looked up to and worshipped. And I personally had the experience of meeting professors, people who are on staff at both Harvard and MIT, because we used to preach in Harvard Square. We used to do Harinam there. And you would meet these people, and they're supposed to be the most sophisticated, the most intelligent. Yet it was clear to see in their character, they were very degraded in terms of their attachment to sense gratification. We had very advanced, we had money, we're successful. Now we can really enjoy sense gratification. And who was the big guru of intoxication? Timothy Leary. He was a Harvard professor, a psychology professor, and he was trying to achieve enlightenment through intoxication. But what a fool. Later on, his associate, what was his name? Richard Albert, Dr. Richard Albert, became famous as Ram Das, who turned away from the intoxication and tried to understand the mysticism of the East. And he wrote a book called Be Here Now. And that book was a very famous handbook of the enlightened generation in the late 60s and early 70s when that book was published. Amongst my friends when I was a teenager, that book was an extremely important book. So one time I was hitchhiking in California with my friend from the neighborhood, and we were going here and there, and we didn't have much money. I had a little money I had saved from the job I just got fired from in the factory, where I lied and said I was 18 years old, but I was actually 15. I worked for a couple of weeks, and they fired me and said, you get the check right away when they fire you. I had a couple $100. We were hitchhiking around, and at one roadside fruit stand, so I bought some grapes, a big thing of grapes. And so we went to this campground in one of the national forests, and we didn't have a vehicle, so we couldn't really get a camping spot, but we sort of camped out in between the spots in the brush there in the undergrowth, ignominiously trespassing on national forest land in an illegal way. And it was extremely dark. There was no moon, there was no stars, and the nearest light from the nearest campsite was a ways. It was really dark. So we're sitting there talking, you know, laying in the leaves and the brush with our sleeping bags and this and that. And I said, pass over that bag of grapes. And I didn't know, but the whole time we'd been talking, he'd been eating the grapes, and there were none left. He ate my whole bag of grapes that I had bought, and I was, you know, saving to relish those grapes. And I said, what do you mean there's no more grapes? He said, I ate all the grapes. And I said, what is the matter with you? First of all, I paid for those grapes. Those were my grapes. And why are you eating all the grapes in the dark where no one can see you? He goes, be here now, man. And I said, you didn't read the book at all. Be here now doesn't mean that you can just be a rascal and in the next minute abdicate all responsibility for your rascaldom, for your foolishness, for your cheating behavior, and it's okay. Be here now, man. Like we had one boy who was here, a Bhakta, who stayed with us for a little while, but he was a little crazy. And he said that, well, because I'm not my body and I'm not my mind, therefore I have no responsibility for any of my actions. Clearly not understanding the law of karma and action and reaction. It's true you're not the doer, but whatever activities you perform, you're responsible for those actions. Unless you do everything as an offering to Krishna, then you're absolved of all that. But to artificially think, yes, I can do whatever the frick I want. I'm not responsible for it because I'm not this body. Be here now, man. So it's like, you didn't read the book. Oh, you didn't read the Bhagavad Gita either. You can just do any nonsense thing for your own sense of gratification. Say, oh, Krishna absolves all the karma. It's all taken away. So there are devotees who do that same be here now, man, trick. But it's not a fact. It's a misapplication, a misunderstanding of the real transcendental philosophy that's presented within the Vedic paradigm. So here, Lord Chaitanya is telling a learned scholar, like the learned scholars I encountered in Harvard Square, who were morally degraded by their sinful activities, but meanwhile thinking they were very elevated. And they're respected by other people as being very highly educated, almost as if they were realized souls. But they are not. They're like, oh, you must be very learned because I don't even know those words. Well, guess what? Those words don't even exist. They just make them up. In order to bluff. It's just cheating, just bluffing. So, people do not understand, an ordinary person, even a learned person, cannot understand the symptoms and the speech and the activities of a Vaishnava. One who, Karuya Uday, Krishna Prema Karuya Uday, who has had the love of Krishna awakened within his heart. So we aspire as neophyte Vaishnavas to have that love of Krishna awakened within our own hearts. Although we may tacitly admit that, we're not there, but we would like to get there. And that following this process of Krishna consciousness will bring us there to that platform where that love of Krishna will be awakened within our heart. We're just a bunch of doggies barking and nipping each other and fighting and running around like very foolishly. And that was the Department of Government Efficiency, doggy. Very hilarious. They couldn't have picked a better name for themselves. And then they all fought. The person who was supposed to be the head of the department was fighting with the person that appointed him, and they were all just like a bunch of doggies, barking and carrying on foolishly. But according to an old saying that Prabhupada used many times, the dogs may bark, but the caravan shall pass. So the doggies of government efficiency, they may bark, but the caravan of Krishna consciousness and the Krishna conscious movement shall continue on its way, which is to deliver human society from the clutches of the darkness of ignorance by demonstrating the activities of Krishna consciousness and giving that an opportunity for everyone else to join the caravan, as it were. So when on the Silk Road and in the ancient days, you'd have a caravan with the camels and maybe some wagons, and they're passing by on the trade route, and they come by the village, and then all the village dogs, they see the caravan, and they all start barking. There's the caravan, and they're barking very furiously, very agitatedly. Who is this caravan? But the caravan, do they take note of the dogs? They just pass on through. Of course, maybe the little kid who's the son of the caravan leader, he may grab a rock and throw it at the dogs. But the caravan passes on, and the barking of the dogs is of actual no consequence. It will become displeased with all the followers in the Krishna conscious movement, and that everyone was doomed, and they were preaching this gloom and doom from their elevated position as leading sannyasis in the movement. And Prabhupada put a stop to it. He kicked him out and said, go out and preach. He kicked him out of the temples. You just go preach on your own, and then you'll become purified. And then he wrote in a letter to one of the leaders of ISKCON, these sannyasis may bark, but the caravan shall pass. You see, Prabhupada has a great sense of humor. You see the barking sannyasis, what they're done is very funny. So the fools and the rascals and the intellectuals and the so-called shreshtas of human society, they may bark and protest about the Krishna conscious movement, but the caravan shall pass. So the real thing is to be a part of the caravan and be on that great mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what is the destination of that caravan? It is to go back home, back to Godhead. Vigeha Nabujaya. So even a learned scholar cannot understand the activities of the Krishna consciousness movement or those of the great Vaishnava. Now let us turn to the verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 78, which is at the very end of the Gita, and which verse Srila Prabhupada quotes today, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yatra Parto Dhanadhara Tata Shri Vijayo Bhutir Yuva Nitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. So, this is quoted in relation to Maharaj Priyavrata, who was extraordinarily powerful. So powerful that he could be like a second son. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that in Bengal there's a saying that someone is so powerful they can turn day into night and night into day. Of course, someone who's a rascal will try to turn the daytime into night, the brilliant effulgence of the beautiful sun into the darkness of ignorance. So let's read a little bit from Prabhupada's purport. He says, the Bhagavad Gita began with an inquiry of Dhritarashtra's. He was hopeful of the victory of his sons, assisted by great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. He was hopeful that the victory would be on his side. But after describing the scene on the battlefield, Sanjaya told the king, and this verse is spoken by Sanjaya. Sanjaya told Dhritarashtra, you're thinking of victory, but my opinion is that where Krishna and Arjuna present, there will be all good fortune. He directly confirmed that Dhritarashtra could not expect victory for his side. Victory was certain for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Krishna's acceptance of the post of charioteer for Arjuna was an exhibition of another opulence. Krishna is full of all opulences. So what opulence did Krishna exhibit by accepting the post of the charioteer of Arjuna? Who knows? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, you know. Anybody else knows? Yes? No, renunciation. That's not one of the 6 opulences. Renunciation. He's God, yet he's giving up his superior position and becoming the chariot driver, who's the servant of the warrior on the chariot. The real thing is the warrior. The chariot driver's, he's the chauffeur, as it were. Guy with the little black hat and, driving the chariot, Mr. Arjuna. Which way should we go? So there are many instances of such renunciation. For Krishna is also the master of renunciation. The fight was actually between Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. Arjuna was fighting on behalf of his elder brother Yudhishthira. Because Krishna and Arjuna were on the side of Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira's victory was certain. The battle was to decide who would rule the world, and Sanjaya predicted that the power would be transferred to Yudhisthira. It is also predicted here that Yudhisthira, after gaining victory in this battle, would flourish more and more, because not only was he righteous and pious, but he was also a strict moralist. He never spoke a lie during his life. Like George Washington, I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree. That famous apocryphal story. There are many less intelligent persons who take Bhagavad Gita to be a discussion of topics between two friends on the battlefield. But such a book cannot be scripture. It's just two friends talking in the wartime. No. Some may protest that Krishna incited Arjuna to fight, which is immoral. But the reality of the situation is clearly stated. Bhagavad Gita is the supreme instruction in morality. The supreme instruction of morality is stated in the 9th chapter, in the 34th verse. Manmana bhava mad bhakto majajimam namaskaru. One must become a devotee of Krishna. And the essence of all religion is to surrender unto Krishna. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita constitute the supreme process of religion and morality. All other processes may be purifying and lead to this process, but the last instruction of Gita is the last word in all morality and religion. Surrender unto Krishna. This is the verdict of the 18th chapter. So we'll stop here, ask for any questions, comments, or realizations. Yes, Divya.
Does it say how long King Priyavrata circumambulated or, trailed the sun?
Not in this verse.
Yeah, because once around is probably not very sustaining for the seasons.
No, apparently he was able to.
Able to do that and
not
be
just one time.
and be.
I would go in trouble to build a chariot and then only go around once.
Yeah.
You only go around once in life. You got to go grab for all the gusto you can. You only go around once the sun. No, the sun goes round and round.
Right.
Well, didn't it yesterday, it said that he ruled for like 11 times 100 million?
So he had plenty of chance to do his circumambulations and provide heat and light in the darker portions during the apogee and perigee of the sun. Yes, for a long time.
Yeah. So you can do that simultaneously.
Yeah, it's part of his program.
Yeah.
Demonstrating his power as a ruler, influencing the entire universe.
So since he ruled for so long, even through all the Kali Yugas, so were the Kali Yugas like nicer then?
I don't know about that. That's an interesting question. A Kali Yuga is never nice,
Yeah.
as we have experienced. Kali Yuga always stinks. That's the way it is. Anyone else? Okay, we got one over here. I'm done.
You mentioned the four sannyasis, and I know it was Gargamuni, Brahmananda.
We weren't naming names deliberately.
I just was trying to figure out the fourth one.
Vishnu John,
Gargamuni, Gargamuni.
Gargamuni, and who's the fourth one? I can't remember.
I can't remember the fourth one.
But yeah. Four barking sannyasis. Imagine that they have a big hit, who's the group, it's the four barking sannyasis. My father, when he was in college, he was in a musical group, a singing group. They had 4 guys, and they're called the 4 Freshmen. Here you have the 4 barking sannyasis.
Oh.
But the music they were singing was not palatable because it was tinged with Mayabad. But they all became purified and returned to their service. Sureshwar is not here. He would know.
Yeah.
He's an astute student of
Right.
ISKCON history.
He's coming today, right?
Supposed to be coming today.
He gets back today.
So we could ask him. Who was the 4th? It was Tamal. No, it wasn't Tamal. Vishnu, John, Argamuni, Brahmananda, and can't remember the 4th. All right. Although we were not naming names. I wasn't.
That was long ago.
Then I just. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavatam ki jai.
Good.